Hello, YouTube. I'm in bed. My name is Christopher Reed, by the way, and I rarely go live, but I have to talk about this. I'm in the comfort of my bed. I recently found out some old news concerning Rick Chow, that he is responsible for the murder of Cyrus. I am tired and fed up of this country and racism for black people as far as black people is concerned. My sister has told me continuously that I have to learn to accept the things I cannot change, and that is correct. But I do understand that there's some type of injustice that I believe continuously exists because of racism, because of the denial of the truth. The denial of the truth, that the righteous remain silent, that the very few are speaking up to what is right. And let us look at Dr. Umar. I was watching this video, but I'm going to share with you it.
Hilarious as well. So what do you think about that? Theo Von saying, "Oh well, that gives us permission to do more blackface." Then
one of the things I was going to say a minute ago in our earlier dialogue was white people have been waiting for this day to be given permission to be unapologetically racist again. I mean, let's realize something. The modern civil rights movement began around 1955 with the lynching of Emmett Till. So if you go from 1955 until the rollback of Black progress, which I would say began when Ronald Reagan took office, but if we want to say it didn't really start until Donald Trump. If you want to bring it to the Trump years, so be it. So if you go 65, 75, 85, 95, 05, 15, 60 years, white people have had to act like they were not racist, and they did not appreciate that. White people don't like hiding their racism because the first privilege of white racism is to be honest about how you feel. And so the fact that Donald Trump led the way in being honest about how he feels about Black people, white are now following suit. So this is them just being to be who they have always. And I knew that this day would come sooner or later. You know, it was only a matter of time. And I really felt that we, the American African people, we did ourselves a disservice by not making sure we got some concessions from President Barack Obama while he was in office, because I knew that would be the last possible time that the Black community would be able to put any demand on a U.S. president, especially since we naively and irresponsibly told the country that he didn't have to serve our interests. All he needed to do was just be Black, which created a context whereby Presidents Trump and President Biden likewise did not have to serve the interests of Black people either. Letting Obama slide without any accountability was one of the worst things Black America did, and our great-great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren will still be suffering the aftershocks of that poor decision.
This here right here, as far as the Rick Chow situation, is that it is phenomenal. The Chinese are killing, but the reason why such a thing is happening is that Chinese people, not all, some Chinese Americans believe that they are white. They believe they are white. They believe that they have white privilege. They believe that they can do and treat black people any way they can to the extent of what their own culture permits them to. And killing black people apparently is what makes sense to these people. I am completely astonished. I have seen that if the Chinese can do this, the Latin American man could do this, then everybody can do this. Everyone is against black people. The black life in America has no worth. It has no credibility. It has no respect. And it is so astonishing that such a thing is happening. And our own people, specifically those who are educated in office and those who are celebrities who are aware, deny it, cover it up, or just plain accept it as a reality, but don't believe nothing else can change because we have become not committed to ourselves.
Which way is up with everything that's going on? I know that I just recently had a conversation with Terrence Floyd, that's George Floyd's brother. We had a great conversation. Um, he was speaking of George Floyd being the martyr, if anything, if he could, look 5 years from now and look back and see what it was like and what he represented. But then there's a Carmelo Anthony. And I think that it's fair to say for all of us that we imagine that there's going to be another because I don't see an end to it at this time. Which way is up?
Which way is up? Mass organization and mobilization for African people. The one thing that African people have to accept, my people, is we are going to continue to be treated like this until we organize. Dr. King was able to give white America pause because of the organization of Black power. The Black Panthers were able to give this country pause. The Honorable Marcus Garvey was able to give this country pause. The Deacons for Defense was able to give this country pause. Whenever you see white people take a step back away from Black people, it's because Black people took a bold, courageous step forward towards white people. The problem is we have not been organized in a serious way since Dr. King. 57 years without a major movement. Can we overcome this? Yes, but it begins with organizing with each other. See, the way I look at it, Carmack Belton, our brother who was shot in the back by Rick Chow, who was acquitted, he should have never even been in that Asian-owned gas station because Black America should have had their own gas station. When I look at Carmelo Anthony, he should have never been at a track meet for a predominantly white high school or high schools because we should have had our own Black high schools for our children. So we have to look at how we are partly responsible for this because we're not creating safe spaces for our children or for ourselves. There's a big issue going on in the country now regarding matricide in the Black community, how Black women are walking into these hospitals, giving birth and leaving in a body bag. And in addition to that, you have Black women walking into these hospitals, being turned away from the hospital, telling them that they don't have space to deliver their baby. And to that, I would say to my beautiful African sisters who I love, respect, and would die for, look at all the money you spend on wigs and weaves and beauty products. Why don't we have birthing centers of our own? Black America once owned and operated more than 500 hospitals in this nation's history. Let me say that again. We've owned and operated more than 500 hospitals in America's history. We barely have a dozen of them now. So why are we crying about me being mistreated at a white hospital? You know who white people are. They have been consistent for 4 centuries, and they are never going to change. These white people today are the great-great-grandchildren of their great-great-grandparents. They are the same people. Build your own hospitals, build your own birthing centers, build your own gas stations, build your own independent schools. The solution is the Garvey solution. The problem is my people are not serious enough to weaponize their finances to create a new reality for themselves. It is the economic, psychological barrier that keeps us where we are. We've made millionaires and billionaires out of members of every other race in this country, but we will not take that same economic power and create a Black Wall Street for ourselves. We will celebrate Black Wall Street, but Tulsa was
started this business out of my mom's house. Now we've been able to grow into over 500 retailers. I've been on Shopify since the very beginning. There's a bunch of amazing templates that you can choose from. If I needed to go in there and add a logo, add a little bit of text, Shopify makes it really easy to do that. I don't think I'll ever outgrow Shopify. Definitely helped me take my business to the next level. I'm Jack Joseph, founder of Remember Kombucha.
Switch to Google Fi Wireless and get unlimited premium, our most popular phone plan with maximum perks, like 50 gigabytes of high-speed hotspot tethering. Plus, stay connected on the go with no roaming fees in over 200 destinations. And connect tablets and laptops at no extra cost with data-only SIMs. It's all included with your phone plan at just $110 per month for 2 lines. Switch to unlimited premium from Google Fi Wireless.
But Tulsa was over 100 years ago. Rosewood was over 100 years ago. Wilmington, North Carolina was over 100 years ago. Stop celebrating Black Wall Street and create Black Wall Street. You have more wealth in your hands today than our ancestors did who built Black Wall Street.
What about the Caucasian that, because we'd be fools not to believe that you're not also inspiring some Caucasian people that hear your message and hope that they can make a difference. So what about the Caucasian man or woman that decides, I want to be a difference maker for the American African people, and I want to be able to open something up for them? Does that take it away from them because it is a Caucasian individual starting? Like, let's say a Caucasian male walks in and says, hey, we need to recreate a Black Wall Street. Does that take away?
That is an excellent question. If you remember in the Malcolm X movie, Spike Lee's Malcolm X, Denzel Washington, Denzel is going to a lecture and a white girl stops him. And she says, Mr. X, is there anything I can do? He said nothing. That was not the incorrect answer, but it wasn't the full answer. He should have said, there's nothing you can do in my organization or in my community, but there's plenty you can do in your own community to dismantle racism. See, the contradiction of the white liberal is they want to come amongst Black people and be seen as a savior. If you are white and you are genuinely concerned about the condition of Africans in America, and I do not doubt that there are some white people, but if you're genuinely concerned, go fight the fight where the laws are created. Go fight the fight where the systems are maintained. Go fight the fight where the infrastructure was done. You can't change anything being a part of a Black organization. You can't change anything joining a Black march. You change it in your own community, because that's where the white people of power live and reside, who are creating the structures that disenfranchise Black people. Go and fight in the criminal justice system ran by your people. Go and fight in the public school systems ran by your people. Go and fight in the incarceration systems ran by your people. What you want to be around us for? Go amongst your own people. They're the ones that created these problems. So if you genuinely care about Black people, we don't even need to know who you are, because you're so busy fighting your own people who created these systems that we don't even have a chance to even see you.
Well, I got a question.
Now the other part. Let me give you the other part. Let me give you the other that. Psychologically, and this is what I want Caucasian Nation to understand, because I have a lot of white fans, right? And I differentiate a fan from a supporter. Whites and Asians and Arabs, they can be fans, but they cannot be supporters. In other words, they can be fond of the content, the message, or the man, but they cannot be a genuine supporter. Why? Because a white person cannot genuinely support any movement that seeks to eliminate white privilege. It's a contradiction of racism. So they can be a fan of Dr. Umar. They cannot be a supporter of Dr. Umar. But here's the other point I wanted to make. The reason white people cannot join us, above and beyond the obvious and the political, it's the psychological. Black people, many of us, have an inferiority complex. We will not admit it, we do. You cannot wear blonde hair and say you don't feel inferior. You cannot run around marrying white women and say you don't feel inferior. There's an inferiority complex amongst African people that we will never admit because our ego won't allow us to. Because of that inferiority complex, we're always looking for a white savior. We lack the belief that we can solve our own problems. And that is why in the Pan-Africanist movement, the revolutionary Pan-Africanist movement, we do not accept non-African participation, because the psychological victory is more important than the political and economic. Let's say a white man came and gave Dr. Umar $1 million donation to rehabilitate the Frederick Douglass High School. Here's $1 million. Get that high school up. I love your message. I want your people to win. I might not want them to win as much as my people, but I still want them to win on some level. Here's $1 million. I cannot take the money. Because if I open up the Frederick Douglass High School on a white dollar, it was not a Black victory. It is another example of white philanthropy bailing Black people out of a situation we should have solved ourselves. To rebuild the self-esteem, the self-worth, and the self-concept of African people, history and our ancestors dictate that Black people must solve our problems by ourselves.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Being that, and I'm trying to think of this the right way, but being that Carmelo Anthony, that situation is so prevalent right now, do you feel that if he was in an all-Black school, that the situation would have been different? Because from a data perspective, all Black schools usually have more violence. And if that's the case, is your school, let's say he was a part of your school, could he have evaded that violence in today's time with everyone's current mentality? And what are you going to do to keep that violence outside of your school?
Remember, great question.
One trip, zero worries about your travel budget. For countless new cities to skate. Countless.
Black people go to schools that are still ran by white folks. All public schools and charter schools, even if they claim to be African-centered, white folks run them. The state runs them. The superintendent runs them. You might have Black teachers. You might even have a Black principal, but the system, the structure, the curriculum, the culture, it's all maintained by Caucasians. So when you say black school, you're simply saying white school with predominantly black children. Okay. I want to be very clear about that. White school with predominantly black children. It's not ours. We don't run it. But the question you asked about how do I make sure that does not happen at FDMG? Real simple. The first thing you have to do with black children, African children in the United States, because we have been taught so much self-hate through slavery, through oppression, through public school, through media. And some of that media is our own. The first thing you got to do with black children is teach them how to work together and how to love each other. So there would be no need for violence because that's my brother. He's not just my schoolmate. He's not just my classmate. He's not a stranger that I go to school with. That is my brother. And so at FDMG, we are building a brotherhood that will last an entire lifetime, that will far exceed the length of my own life. So our culture is completely different. This is a family. And if you have trouble fitting into the family, you cannot be a part of it, and we will simply dismiss you from the school.
So
you have to teach black children to work together, because the reason why we're catching as hell, I just said what? If we had our own school, if we had our own gas station, why don't we have it? Black people are not socialized to work together. Even in our religious institutions, we're not socialized to work together. We may be socialized to work together in a Baptist church as Baptists. We may be socialized to work together in a Methodist church as Methodists. We may be socialized to work together in that particular black conscious organization structure. But what about coming across religious denomination? What about coming across ideological domination? Tribalism has been a curse on the black race since the white man touched the mother continent. Tribalism is the reason Africa is in what she's in. Partly racism is always the main problem, but then the tribalism is how racism succeeds so effectively. Same thing in Black America. Racism is the problem, but the tribalism underneath the racism is how they're able to exploit. And the solution to tribalism is collective consciousness.
Okay, and I wanna talk about the Knicks just winning the championship. I know we were talking about it recently, and I know that a lot of people were worried about the behavior that was happening after the games. People were fighting, and I know that sometimes the black community kind of makes it hard on themselves with the way that they act, the things that they say. What's your thoughts on that, on everything that was happening after the games, the crimes, the things that were being said? Where are you at on that?
I'm going to push back on you. And the reason I'm going to push back on you is I saw just as many whites doing what blacks were doing. The New York situation, of course, the media is going to make it a black thing, but there were just as many whites doing what blacks doing. In fact, New York being the most diverse city in the country, they were all crashing out. I saw Asians, I saw Arabs, I saw Latinos. First of all, there's more white people in New York than black people. So there's no way black people could have been most of those responsible for the post-victory
it was a New York thing.
Celebration.
You know the way, and you're from New York, bro. So, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, so it's a New York thing. I was terrified.
That was clearly a New York thing.
I was terrified for them to win or lose,
black,
bro.
No, the media is never going to hold white folks accountable for that. If they can shift it onto black people, that's exactly what they're going to do.
And I think that's what
why
they
black
did.
people have to be careful. We have to be careful because the camera is only going to show us.
Yeah, it only shows because, if you look on Instagram, you look on the news, it only shows the black people did it, but it don't show the Asians, it don't show the white people doing it. Only thing that was highlighted was the black people, honestly, which is crazy that the way that works.
White folks crashed out way more than black folks in New York.
Everybody was crashing out.
As many white people as black people in New York, but they're not going to show you that.
I want to revisit a conversation that we were talking about earlier. You said about interracial relationships, right? I want to ask you, can a black man, love their culture, but still build a family outside of it? Is that something that you believe in?
If we argue that love is not absolute, then yes, it's possible to love your culture and build a family outside of it, but you didn't love your culture enough.
I just built a budgeting app with Base 44.
Nina just built an app.
So we can all build apps now?
I'm on lunch.
I gotta make a call.
I'll be right back.
Office.
Just built an inventory tracker.
Protein calculator.
Book sharing app.
Profesor de español.
Now, if we argue that love is absolute, you either love your people or you don't, which is kind of more where I stand. I don't completely negate the idea that there's levels of love. Okay, but politically speaking, I got to know what side you're on. So politically speaking, I'm talking you either love your race or you don't. And a black man who loves his race could not, absolutely could not, black woman either, create a family outside of their own community, and especially not with a white person. First of all, you got to look at this now. Only 1 out of every 4 black women gets married because of the war on black men that has us in the cemetery or in the penitentiary or have us wearing a dress, right? So only 1 out of every 4 of our women is getting married anyway. So if you love the black community and you know that our children are not seeing enough healthy examples of black on black heterosexual love, how can you claim to care and not be about the business of trying to rectify that statistic? It is an absolute contradiction for a black man who claims to care about black people marrying white. And we've had Harry Belafonte and your Sidney Poitiers and your James Earl Joneses, and some of these men were activists, right? Harry Belafonte did a lot for Dr. King. He not only funded a lot of what the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was doing, he marched and he participated and put his career on the line. But I think he married 2 or 3 snow bunnies. And so at the end of the day, despite the good, and I will never throw out the good now. I will never throw out the good. Never. Because 2 things can be true at the same time. I can teach our children about Harry Belafonte at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, but at the same time, I have to expose this contradiction of not committing to a black woman.
So Dr.
And as a
Umar,
result of that, his photo cannot go up in the school because no bunny hoppers can hang on the walls of the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey.
so Dr. Umar, you've never,
but I love him as an ancestor. I love my ancestor.
Do you not find any white girls attractive?
Of course there's attractive white women.
So you do find them attractive then? So you're not repulsed
not on a
by
regular
white
basis,
women.
But there's been times when I've seen a white woman and said, that's an attract to myself. That's an attractive white woman. I spoke in Australia.
You ever been with a white woman? Ever?
Never in my life.
Never in your life?
Never in my life. And I've had white women pursue me. They're in my Instagram right now showing me how curvy they are.
I mean, white women love their black men. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
That's
sure.
Another reason.
Right,
You said less black women are getting married because there's men in dress, but also because the snow bunnies are scooping them.
Yeah.
White girls love black dudes.
But I cannot be scooped unless I let her do the scooping.
That's facts.
That's facts.
Because here's the thing, gentlemen. There's more black women in the world than any other human population. The black woman is the largest subset of the human race. So if Dr. Umar doesn't feel like I can find my 2 wives in America, then I can just take a 4-hour flight to the Caribbean, right? I can just go on up to Canada. I can go to the continent. I can go to Europe. I can go to Asia. I can go to the South Pacific. You have too many options as a black man. White people are a numerical minority on this planet. Black women are a numerical majority on this planet. So there's no excuse a black man can give me, given those numbers, for why you still ended up with the pale princess instead of an African queen.
Well, those pale princesses, they're setting them up. To be honest, I was watching this interview actually where this white woman, she was talking about how to get rich black athletes to become kind of like the wife, and what she was basically explaining was that she has a strategy on how she does it. She just basically does the complete opposite of what black women do. If black women are loud, she's understanding. They have like
stereotypical black women.
Exactly, stereotypical. So it's one of these things that nowadays, the reason why these black athletes and men in general are falling for these white women or the snow bunnies, like you call them, is because these women are doing what the black women aren't doing technically.
Well, also the white girls are picking up on black culture as well. The way they're doing their hairs, the way they're doing their bodies now, the swags that they're wearing as well. So they're finding familiarity inside of something like that with from if I'm going based off of your understanding, with a bigger social acceptance.
Here's the thing though, gentlemen. I don't disagree with anything you said, but it's focused primarily on the superficial. In other words, my message to black men is that the most important thing? Because if you're committed to the liberation of African people.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made
the fact that the white girl might be nicer to you, the fact that she might be more submissive to you, that should now outweigh the benefit of Black children seeing you loving up on a queen. That should not outweigh the benefit of you being able to create generational wealth and create an entire army of beautiful African children who are going to make a distinct contribution to the regeneration of our people as a nurse, as a scholar, as an engineer, okay, as an entrepreneur, as an inventor. I mean, that Black man and that Black woman, they are raising an army spiritually, politically, economically, and socially. So how can the superficialities or the niceties of a snow bunny outweigh the critical infrastructure that comes from building with a Black queen? It's absolutely intolerable and unacceptable, and is rooted in selfishness. It's completely rooted in selfishness. And this is why I say you can't love the Black community and marry a white woman. Because if you really love the Black community, you would recognize the disservice you are doing to it by going outside of your race. And the truth be told, every Black man with a white woman has an inferiority complex. He don't want his children to look like him. He wants to kill off his African phenotype, which is exactly what will happen, because in 3 or 4 or 5 generations of intermarriage, you won't be able to tell that those are actually mixed race children. And that's what we're going through right now. If you look at some of the great Bob Marley's grandchildren, if you look at Michael Jordan, who now has mixed race children to the Cuban snow bunny he married, 3 or 4 generations, if his white children, mixed race children, marry a white person and they marry a white person, I mean, look at Michael Jackson. And I'm a Michael Jackson fan. But for him to have these white children carrying on his legacy, they're going to marry white people. Most of our Black entertainers and celebrities, if they don't stop this bunny hopping, 6, 7 generations from now, fellas, their entire bloodline will be white. Imagine going to a family reunion 75 years from now for Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson or Bob Marley, and everybody at the family reunion is a blood relative, and they can all pass for white. What does that say about Black excellence?
Wild.
Yeah,
it really is wild. But
definitely getting watered down for sure.
I'm not saying no. A lot of the and this is just to not really play devil's advocate, but to highlight something that I think is true amongst men, especially young men. I think these young men are getting caught up in these situations for being a fool. You know, I don't think there's enough education out there. So for some, I don't know if it's inferiority or maybe it's built in already. But it's a lot of foolishness. You know, they don't really have that education, and which is why I was saying to you earlier, I believe with what you are doing with the school, if it's not your mind, maybe you spark the mind.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because that's a conversation that in the communities we needed. I grew up in the east side of Buffalo, New York. I was, I think, one of 2 Latino families, and there was one white family. Right, predominantly African-American neighborhood. And the conversations I had there weren't really heightened like this. You know, it was about, you know, people, places, and things. And that was avoided. Although I did go to MLK school and I learned a lot about Martin Luther King, I was never taught, you know, how to properly move forward in life and have my family and create my family and what I should be focused on or financially either, right? Because we speak on the decisions that a lot of us minorities are making financially. You know, we're focused on buying hair products, or are we focused on buying vehicles, which we spoke about in the past, right? Opposed to creating something like this. So do you not think that it's a little bit more about foolishness than inferiority?
I think it's both. I think, to your point, the foolishness and the inferiority comes together and makes the perfect bomb. It makes the perfect bomb. Because in that foolishness, you get humor and you take things lightly that should be taken more seriously. And I think a lot of that is coming from the fact that the young people we have in the American African community now, the Black community, these are the grandchildren of the AIDS and crack epidemic. I'm not saying that their parents were crack babies. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that these are just the children whose grandchildren had to survive the AIDS and crack.
I needed some inspiration for how to wear them, so I asked ChatGPT to help me. It was so useful to brainstorm how to wear them for different occasions like work, going out, running errands, and date night.
Era, okay? And the AIDS and crack era, when the US government declared biochemical warfare on the Black community, because this was the immediate aftermath of the civil rights movement. And you will never understand Black America in the 21st century if you don't understand how the government engineered the biochemical war against Black people to destroy the Black Power movement. They sent the dope and the AIDS into our community to neutralize the political revolution. They had to get Black people's attention off of the government, off of justice, off of freedom and equality. And in order to do that, what we're going to do, hit them with the crack, and we're going to hit them with the AIDS. And Black America still has not rebounded from that. And these young people now being the grandchildren of that era, not that their parents were on any substance, I want to be clear, but that generation is when you begin to see Black America separate. That's when you begin to see Black America disentangle from one another. That was the beginning of the destruction of the fiber of the Black community. We have not been a community since the 80s. And then when the white man came in with the post-civil rights gains and started saying you could go to this college and you could start working at this job, you got to remember, you started getting a bunch of your Black first. He's the Black first vice president of Ford. This is the first Black secretary of this. You're getting that during crack and AIDS. So guess what that does? It tells the educated Negroes, you don't have to live in the hood no more. You can now get a mortgage in a white neighborhood. Not only can you get a mortgage in a white neighborhood, did you see what the Supreme Court just did in 1967? You can now marry a snow bunny legally. So you can get your white girl and move to the suburb. And they split. They cut the head off the body. They split the educated elite away from the grassroots community. We lost our head. Dr. King and the civil rights movement, a lot of those brothers and sisters were well educated, but they stayed in the trenches with their people. But when the 80s and 90s came, when the crack hit, educated Black people say, I don't want no drug addict living next to me. I don't want my kids going to school with children whose parents was addicted to substances, and they abandon us. You cannot understand what's happening right now in America unless you understand how the talented 10th abandoned the Black community.
Powerful.
I know one
Umar,
thing for
I'm
sure.
sitting
Every time I speak to you specifically, Umar, I love the conversation, man, and I love that we were able to do that with these guys as well. Space aside, you know, I know there's a few more questions, obviously.
Sure, I'm good. Let's go.
It's phenomenal. I love it.
No problem.
Yeah,
I do want to say this
Dr.
before the next
Apologies.
question, just as a point.
Go ahead.
Just as a point to my supporters who will be watching this interview, the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, the Garvey building, because you know we have 4 buildings. So we're talking about the Marcus Garvey Elementary School, not the Frederick Douglass High School, which is much larger. But the Marcus Garvey Elementary School has been completely ready since Frederick Douglass's birthday, February 14th. So you might ask the question, well, today is June the 15th. We have March, April, May, June. We are 1/3 of the year since you claimed your school was ready for operation. So why?
Because it's late, I'm going to conclude and finish this because I am so tired, and I'll continue this another time.